everyone around me was making money on crypto. And I wasn't. Not because I missed it, because I chose not to. And for a while, that felt like a mistake. If you've ever had that feeling that you're doing this wrong while everyone else is winning, this is the part nobody prepares you for? I'm Sats. This is video 50. And this might be the most important thing I have said in all of them. Let me set the scene, because the specific details of this situation matter more than the general idea. It was an altcoin season, the kind where Bitcoin is moving, but slower than everything around it. Coins nobody had heard of 6 months earlier were up 300%. Projects with white papers and roadmaps and communities full of people celebrating their returns were everywhere. And everyone I knew who was in crypto, which by that point was quite a few people, seemed to be positioned in exactly the right things. A friend had put money into something I had never heard of and doubled it in 3 weeks. A colleague was talking about a token that had gone up 500% since he bought it. Someone I followed online was posting screenshots of gains that made my steady, unspectacular Bitcoin position look like I had missed the entire point. The feeling this produced is difficult to describe accurately. It was not quite envy. It was something more unsettling than that. It was the specific discomfort of watching people you know make decisions that look smarter than yours in real time, with money on the line. And the voice it produced in my head was very specific. It said, "You are doing this wrong." If this is the kind of honest Bitcoin conversation you were looking for, the subscribe button is right there. I stayed. Not because I was certain I was right, because I did not have a good enough reason to change. And then things changed. Not dramatically, not all at once. But the projects that had gone up 300% came back down. Some of them further than they had gone up. The friend who had doubled his money in 3 weeks watched it go back to where he started and then below. The token that had risen 500% fell back and kept falling. The screenshots of gains stopped appearing in my feed. The conversations about which project to buy next got quieter. And Bitcoin, which had looked slow and boring and like the wrong choice during the run, was still there. Doing what it had always done. Moving on its own schedule, indifferent to what had happened around it. Here is what I want to say about that experience. And I want to say it carefully, because I think it is easy to draw the wrong lesson. The lesson is not that altcoins always fail. Some projects have genuine utility and have survived and grown over time. The lesson is not that Bitcoin always wins in the short term. It does not. There will be periods, and there already have been periods, where Bitcoin underperforms significantly against other assets for extended stretches of time. The lesson is something more specific and more personal. During that altcoin season, the people around me were not making better decisions than me. They were taking more risk in a period when more risk was being rewarded. That looks like skill from the outside. It is often not. It is timing, which is mostly luck, combined with a willingness to hold assets you do not fully understand, which is not a virtue. The gains were real, for a while. The understanding behind them, in most cases, was not. What I had and what felt like a disadvantage during that period was a clear and simple reason for holding what I held. I knew what Bitcoin was. I knew why I owned it. I could articulate the case for it in plain English, without relying on narratives about use cases and ecosystems and partnerships that I did not actually understand. That clarity felt slow and boring when everything else was moving, and then it felt like the right foundation when everything else stopped. Here's the thing I think about most when I look back at that period. The people who made money and kept it were not the ones who moved fastest during the run. They were the ones who understood what they owned well enough to know when to hold and when to walk away. That kind of understanding is hard to develop in any asset. In the altcoin space, where projects move fast and narratives change faster, it is close to impossible for someone who is not paying full-time attention. Bitcoin is the one asset in this space where a beginner can develop genuine understanding. Not because it is simple, because it is consistent, because it has been doing the same thing in the same way for 17 years, because the rules do not change, because the supply is fixed and the network keeps running, and the case for it does not depend on a team delivering on a roadmap or a community maintaining enthusiasm. That consistency felt like a weakness when everything around it was surging. It is the same consistency that has made it the only asset in the crypto space to survive multiple full cycles and come out with its fundamental value proposition intact. I held Bitcoin while everyone around me was making money on crypto. And then the crypto season ended, and I was still here. The thing I want to leave you with, as this channel reaches its 50th video, is something simpler than any of the specific lessons we have covered. Understanding beats speed. Clarity beats noise. Boring, consistent, well-reasoned decisions made over a long period outperform exciting, reactive, trend-following decisions made quickly. Not every time, not in every period, but reliably enough over time that the difference compounds in ways that matter. Bitcoin is boring. That is not a criticism. That is the point. I held Bitcoin while everyone else was chasing something faster, and I would do it again. Not because I was right in the moment, because the thing I was holding was worth understanding, and I understood it. 50 videos about that one idea, and we are nowhere near done. Here is the short version. During an altcoin season, the people around me were making gains I was not. Holding Bitcoin felt slow, boring, and like the wrong choice. Then the season ended. The gains went away. Bitcoin was still there. The lesson is not that altcoins always fail. It is that gains made in assets you do not fully understand are not yours to keep reliably. And during a period when risk is rewarded, the people taking more risk look smarter than they are. What held up was not the fastest moving position. It was the one with the clearest reasoning behind it. Bitcoin is boring. That is not a criticism. That is the point. 50 videos in. Stack smart. Stay curious. If you want to understand why Bitcoin specifically has held its fundamental value proposition across 17 years and multiple full market cycles in a way nothing else in this space has, the video on why Bitcoin has value makes that case from the ground up. Watch that next. Stack smart. Stay curious. See you in the next stack.